Welcome to Digital Nation, your weekly roundup of the best of local TV. Whether it's a famous face lending a helping hand or a pair of falcons living in the heart of the city, we reveal the things you don't normally see anywhere else. This week, we visit the creator of some unique timepieces in the Midlands. We take a trip with a group of miniature railway enthusiasts in Lanarkshire. And we go back in time to a Saxon dwelling in Lincolnshire. Are you loving local? Then let us know what you think by using the hashtag #DigitalNation. With its status as the UK's first outdoor city, Sheffield has a lot to offer fans of adventure sports. To celebrate the launch of the city's Adventure Film Festival, world record holding highliner Sarah Rixham embarked on a wire walk above the Steel City. Sheffield Live were on hand to find out more.
It's my hobby. I do it as much as I can, wherever I can really, in the mountains or in the city if it's possible. So it just seemed a really great opportunity during the festival weekend to be able to do it. I started slacklining through outdoor education at school after being a climber, and I guess highlining is the ultimate goal after that. It's a really great feeling just to look around and see the exposure that you're in, and it's a lot of mental control that you have to use to keep composed, so it's a good challenge. You don't need any natural balance, it's just about practice, really, persistence. You start on a small line and keep trying and then make things more difficult and longer, and yeah, it's always possible. This one for me now is not too hard. I've practiced ones like this quite a lot. But yeah, it depends. You can always make a new challenge, so it can always be difficult. I'd like to just highline in as many places as possible, doing long and aesthetic lines and yeah, seeing what's possible to do.
Our nation's wildlife is a regular fixture on Digital Nation. Sometimes our wild creatures are found in the unlikeliest of places. We head to Nottingham, where a pair of peregrine falcons have taken up residence on top of a building in the city centre, inspiring a growing number of urban birdwatchers.
Pigeons beware. There'll soon be more predatory peregrines patrolling the skies of Notts. This pair laid their first egg in the early hours of the morning, and they could lay around 3 more over the coming days. They've made their home on this towering city centre building because it reminds them of the cliffs that are their natural habitats. And Nottingham Trent University captures their daily lives on camera.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Every year now we get typically over 1 million hits on the webcam, and we get phone calls from around the world, emails and phone calls from around the world. So we had people from the US, from South America, from Africa, worried about the birds a couple of years ago when we had that late snow in April. So yeah, it's become a bit of a global phenomenon, and we've tried to add to it each year. So we've had better cameras. This year we've got the introduction of a new thermal imaging camera as part of some research to be able to actually see whether the birds are quite as cold or chilly as they look. Hopefully, obviously they'll be doing okay and get some warm weather in April this year.
The peregrine is an aristocrat in its own right.
Peregrine populations plummeted in the 1950s and 60s. Widespread use of pesticides wiped out 80% of the falcons in the UK. Since then, the numbers have improved, but falcons like these still face threats. That's part of the reason why the cameras were installed.
What we're trying to do, so initially, was just make sure that nobody actually harms the birds. They are a protected species. There have been cases in recent memory of people trying to actually, harm peregrines in their nests, or perhaps just take the chicks for use in falconry. Then they are few and far between, but these cases do still exist. Some people don't like peregrines. So security is the primary objective, but hopefully we are educating people about just how wonderful these birds are, and that they have a place, and that they still need protection.
So what's next for this peregrine pair and their chicks? Student George Wells is studying the falcons for a dissertation.
They usually lay a clutch size of about 3 to 4 eggs, and there's usually a 48-hour gap between. So the next egg that they'll lay we can be expecting it in the next 24 hours probably. It's most likely. And then after that they'll start incubating when they've laid all 4 eggs. And that'll have about 28 to 33 days, and hopefully we'll get some hatching there.
If you thought board games start with ladders and end with snakes, then think again. A group of fans in Norwich are keeping the dice rolling as part of the Norwich Board Gamers Club. Mustard TV went to discover what it is about board games that has them hooked.
Hunched over tables by the bar, you might expect the conversation to be dominated by work whinges or maybe even Norwich City's goalkeeping dilemmas. Well, actually, these pub goers are board game addicts, and they're discussing how to take over medieval France. They're all members of Norwich Board Gamers, or No-Bogs, and they're settling into a game of Joan of Arc.
For quite a long time, the mainstream view of games is Monopoly and things like that. Gaming has definitely come on a long way from there. A lot of younger people have got into gaming, a lot of students are into gaming. It's quite a cool thing to do.
Far from being seen as old-fashioned, board and card games are actually experiencing a bit of a renaissance in the UK. While there's some sense of competition, the members of No-Bogs are here for more than victory and conquest.
There's limited spaces these days to actually just go and talk to someone. A board game is a fantastic excuse to do that. You're going to sit across the table from someone else. You've got a game in front of you. There's an exercise to do with your brain if you want, or just a bit of fun. But you're also talking to someone, possibly someone you've never met before. It's a great icebreaker.
To Edinburgh now, where a community organisation, The Yard, has recently received a famous visitor. As part of a national campaign of renovation and support, actress Joanna Lumley dropped in to lend a hand and tell STV Edinburgh all about the Spark Something Good campaign.
The Yard is an adventure play centre based in Edinburgh, and we support around 2,000 disabled children and young people from the age of about 2 up to 25. And the campaign that we're here today with is Spark Something Good. It's an amazing campaign that's helping us renovate this space here in Edinburgh. And today what they're going to do is renovate our sandpit, which is a big accessible sandpit for disabled children. And they're also going to be doing some work on the outside fence as well, and so sprucing up generally our space. So our space needs a lot of tender love and care, just as our families do. We are absolutely thrilled to have Joanna here today. We really can't quite believe it, and we're delighted that she herself recognises that having adventure play spaces that provide risk and challenge for disabled children is a really great part of growing up and a great way to support families.
It's really just asking people to volunteer to do something for the community, which can be anything. It can be the local community centre, it can be somewhere fabulous like this, the Yard, helping sort of disadvantaged children. It can be anything. It's just really taking the trouble to say, I think I could help, and helping, that's all. What I love best of all about my life is that I get to see places like this which are really, really inspiring. I've always loved children having a bit of a challenge, not being too mollycoddled at whatever kind of development they are. I just think that children gain so much for themselves if they are able to do stuff. And here in the Yard, I mean, it's fantastic, it's exciting, it's thrilling. You know, the people have been so terrific. Open hearts, that's what it is. People are just opening their hearts and catching fire. You know, people catch fire from each other and they go, we could do that, I could do that, I could help with that, let me do that. And somehow it kind of spreads out. It's like a kind of wildfire of goodness and kindness. I love it.
While many of us are satisfied with a simple alarm clock, there's always a place for a clock with something a little extra. Now, an entrepreneur from the West Midlands has created some elaborate and unusual timepieces that put most others to shame. BCTV in Birmingham spent some time with this innovative creator.
A timekeeper's playground. Tucked away in a workshop in Staffordshire, Paul Parry is the mastermind behind Bad Dog Designs clocks.
I was a 3-year-old kid who took his toys apart and parents stopped buying me toys. When I was 9, I had a bank of TVs in my bedroom, all black and white sets, all stacked up and in pieces. And I've gone on from there.
Every single one of these are handmade, making it more than just your average timepiece. But the real art is in how they're made. All of these unique clocks use Nixie tubes. It's what we used to use before we had LEDs, so we're dating back to the late 70s. Back then, they were most commonly used in petrol pumps and military equipment.
This was actually made about 3 weeks ago.
And it's not just these little tubes that he's managed to salvage. In fact, according to Paul, one man's junk is another man's treasure.
A lot of the equipment, it would have been thrown away, chucked. I mean, this part here is an old ohms meter from about 1910, 1920. Completely useless in this day and age. It's not calibrated, it's not accurate at all. Even the base here is actually the lid off another piece of equipment. This is an old counting thing. That's an old radio valve. That's an old car horn. You just put them together and that's what you get. And they actually move.
Such is the interest in Paul's work, it's even managed to travel through different time zones. And there's one creation in particular that's destined for just under a 7,000-mile journey.
Wilson is actually an almost life-size robot, and he's been commissioned to stand in the foyer of a very nice hotel in Singapore. He'll display the time on his chest. It'll probably take me about 18 months to finish him from start to finish. He's probably about 50% done. I've got the tubes, I've got the skeletons there. I just need to add more details, more bits of old recycled junk to him, basically.
In time, Paul hopes to have his own gallery showcasing his work. And with his little helper by his side, his goals may well be within touching distance. After all, time really is on his side.
That brings us to the end of part 1, which can only mean it's quiz time. In which city did John Dalton develop his atomic theory in 1803? Was it A, Manchester, B, London, or C, Birmingham? Come back and join us in part 2 for the answer. Welcome back to Digital Nation. Before the break, we asked you, in which city did John Dalton develop his atomic theory in 1803? And the answer is A, Manchester. John Dalton's theory was established at Manchester University in 1803, and Ernest Rutherford went on to split the atom for the first time in 1919. If you like trains, climb aboard as we take a trip with the Straven Miniature Railway. This diminutive attraction is run and operated by a dedicated team of volunteers whose enthusiasm for miniature railway keeps the hobby alive.
So since 1949, there has been a steam locomotive running in the park. Well, it was in 1976 we took over the running of the miniature railway and been running it ever since. When it was first built in the 50s and 60s, you used to get a lot of parties coming in on a Saturday, and that time you could take 15,000 people.
Today, if we get 10 to 12,000, we think we've had a fantastic year.
It's so dependent upon the weather. People make up their mind. If it's got a good day, good morning, then we get people in the afternoon.
If it was raining, you wouldn't see anybody. Just us idiots standing waiting in the rain. Our passengers are really varied. We have everybody from the grandparents, the parents, along with the children. And we have the grandparents who came here 40, 50 years ago, and they're still amazed to see the original locomotive in the park. And they will regale their grandchildren or their children with the stories. And it's always an argument with the parents which engine they want to go on, because we have a diesel and we have a steam engine. The older generation really want the steam engine, whereas the children are more used to seeing diesel engines now.
Actually, it's changed. Originally, to start with, it was mainly 10 children to one adult, but now it must be 50-50, I would say.
Yeah, easily. We've had to put extra strong springs in to take the weights.
When we first started in '74, it was mainly young children in the club, but they've all disappeared now. So essentially it's OAPs running it. We're all getting older, or some getting older quicker than others. And so we're looking for new members to help at weekends.
We have only about 4 members now who are under 40. All the rest are really 60 plus. And we need young blood if this is going to continue for 60 years or more, we need young blood to come in.
For anyone interested in our rich and varied history, a reconstruction of the past can offer a vibrant insight into our country's heritage. Estuary TV's Emma Lingard paid a visit to the Saxon house in Lincolnshire to discover more about this exceptional piece of living history.
Hidden away in a part of Lincolnshire is this fabulous piece of history. Behind me is a 7th century Saxon house, and I'm here to meet owners Steve and Judith Jones to find out what inspired them to build it.
When we first moved here, there was just a big 4-acre field and a cottage that we've done up over time. And we knew pretty much straight away that we wanted to attract more wildlife than there was, because it's all farmers' fields around here. So one of the first things we did was to put in 600 little whips, little trees, and to dig a pond using a JCB, a big pond. And then as we went on, I said, could you put like a notional gateway in it? And already, because I like history, I was starting to think, well, where have we got to go for that? Saxons, they had defended settlements, earth embankments. And then I had to actually build something.
The site's been used for a range of visitors here. Some school groups, in the past junior school groups, but nowadays we specialise in our partnership with Demeter House School in Brigg. They come twice a week, not just to do Saxon things, but to do a range of outdoor activities, horticulture, anything we can think of to do with them, basically. Unfortunately, over the last few years, the thatch has started to deteriorate slightly. Because this thatch has not got wire on it like a modern thatch, birds and so on can get in and the wind and so on and starts to disrupt it.
Their dream 20 odd years ago to build something is a reality, and the couple have loved every second of their experimental archaeology project, and it's loved by everyone else who visits.
Loneliness in later years is a common problem, and a group of older men in Bristol are combating this with the aid of their informal group, known as Men in Sheds. Comprising craft work and other activities, the group offers a supportive environment for its members to socialise and meet up on a regular basis.
Carving, sanding, and sharpening are just some of the things that people in East Bristol are getting the chance to do thanks to the organisation Men in Sheds. There's 3 groups in Bristol, and here in Warmley it's the first session.
I've always wanted to sort of find a men's club, if you like. It wasn't a drinking club, if I put it that way, and doing something practical rather than just sitting down talking. They're important for the men themselves, for companionship. Some of them might have been working in their own shed, not really communicating with anybody, especially if they've retired.
The sessions are for anyone, but the nature of Men in Sheds does seem to appeal to a particular demographic.
A lot of men around who are widowers, and they might just sit around, not do very much. But there's an opportunity to come here, meet other people, exchange skills, and suddenly, in your 70s or older, you feel useful again.
From Welsh love spoons to a new milk stool for the museum, any number of items can be whipped up by these Men in Sheds.
Now it's time for some great British creativity in this week's Creative Kingdom.
The Industrial Revolution created a lot of jobs and money and prestige, but it also created smoke and grime and smog and dust. And if you wanted to get the dirt out of your carpet, you needed to rely on the old dustpan and brush. There was a definite vacuum in the market, and it was filled by Gloucester and a man called Hubert Cecil Booth. In 1901, Hubert invented the Puffing Billy, the world's first suction cleaner. Okay, so you couldn't exactly stash it under the stairs, what with it being pulled by a horse and having an 80-foot hose, but it did the job. And when he created a portable version a few years later, he volunteered to use it on the red carpet for Edward VII's coronation at Westminster Abbey. He really cleaned up. Proof once again that when it comes to creativity, innovation, and the production of suction, in Gloucester Mint.
Even in the worst days of conflict in Northern Ireland, one man managed to work across both sides of the divide, pulling his horse-drawn roundabout through the streets to the delight of children across the city. NVTV in Belfast looks back at the legacy of Mickey Marley.
Growing up during the Troubles, especially in Lower Falls, it was absolutely madness. You're talking about bombs. It was just normal to see shooting, to hear bombs, to see Land Rovers and constant funerals. When you talk about Mickey Marley on a Grosvenor Road, somebody's got a big, massive story to tell you about him.
Mickey Marley was a Belfast legend, toured the streets of Belfast for over 50 years, with a roundabout, entertaining the kids.
Run around. Right.
Went up and down the Falls Road, the Shanker Road, all over.
He had no political aspirations or anything else.
You want it this way, up way? No, this time getting cocoa this way.
For people who didn't know him, they did miss out on a big character because he was part of Belfast, he was Belfast, you know, everybody knew him. And he became that well known that he had a song wrote for him.
Unknowingly to himself, I think he didn't realise that he was a link actually between Catholics and Protestants in his own way, because they took him, they didn't care what he was, because the children just wanted to get on that roundabout, and Mickey was more than happy to take their few pence and give them a spin on it, you know.
Finally, we join Latest TV in Brighton on the red carpet for the opening night of The Perfect Murder, a stage adaptation of the novel by Brightonian Peter James. The author was on hand to discuss the play along with cast members, including EastEnders actors Shane Ritchie and Jesse Wallace.
The Perfect Murder. I bet you've all thought about it. But Brighton's Peter James wrote that book. It's been a worldwide success. And tonight, Peter James is bringing it all back to Brighton with a red carpet gala reception for the stage adaptation of his book. And the moon's out, not that one, but Alfie and Kat, because the stars of tonight's performance are Shane Ritchie and Jesse Wallace from EastEnders.
I think the comedy should come from the honesty. I think that's what black humour is about. Yeah, and this is like laughing at a funeral.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as they start wrapping me in bin bags, I can hear the audience laughing, but they're laughing out of because it's so macabre.
It's exciting. It's, you know, what we all love doing as actors, especially in front of a live audience. And it's from going from something quite dark and menacing to something really funny.
And when you have humour set against something quite dark, and you can't get much darker than a man planning to murder his wife, and yet there is this kind of comedic setting to it, and I think it makes the laughter even funnier in a bizarre way.
And that completes our regular rundown of the best of local. If our stories have inspired you, then don't forget there's more you can see on each of the local TV channels' websites. Or why not catch up on previous episodes by visiting bbc.co.uk/Digital Nation. So until next week, goodbye.